So thank you for being here tonight. This has been an ongoing burden of mine to share experiences and information, especially for those that are younger. And I'll tell you why. But first, I want to say this. When I started compiling my information about business opportunities because of the many things that I've been involved in, the Lord checked me and reminded me His blessing has been on my efforts and on my business. We have always tithed on everything that we've made, whether it's my income from Knoll Canning Corporation or any business ventures that we have been on. One of the greatest days in my farming cherry days was the end of the year when everything balanced out and I got to see what did we actually increase, what was the profit, because I enjoyed truly writing that tithe check because I truly believe in honoring the Lord with the first fruits of our increase. And I want to read that scripture to you real quick before we go on from here. Proverbs 3:9, honor the Lord with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. It's the blessings of God. One more scripture in Malachi chapter 3. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall be not room enough to receive it. It is the blessing of God. And so God puts these principles in front of us and then ties them to a promise. If you'll participate this way, this is what I will do. And so again, before I was to go out and share all these things that will work, because I know, because I did them, He reminded me, it's also because my blessing is on you in the efforts that you're getting involved in. So that's something to always remember. I did some teaching some time back, again, one more scripture, about a principle. This is in Matthew chapter 25. And I have not gotten away from it. Matthew 25:16. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same and made them other 5 talents. He doubled his master's money. Not his money. He doubled his master's money. And likewise, he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. He also, the other servant, doubled his master's money. I want to talk to you tonight about doubling money. All right. Anybody know what the word asset means? Anybody of these younger faces? Assets. An asset is anything of value that is owned and can provide future economic benefit. As a young person, one of your greatest assets is time. I'm 67 years old. I only have so much time. The Lord willing and waiting, you have much more time. And so what you do in your youth, if you'll think about your future, which a lot of young people don't do, it can truly make a significant difference, and I'm going to show you how. Okay? I'm going to tell you ways. How about the word or the term standard of living? Does that mean anything to you? What is a standard of living? It's living your life, say, at this level. Here's a piece of advice that my dad gave to me when I was a kid. I asked him, I said, Dad, if you were to tell me something you've learned through life, what would you tell me? He said, don't adjust your standard of living to your raises. In other words, if you're living on $100 a month and you get a raise to $300 a month, don't adjust your lifestyle and spend all the $300 a month. Don't make that adjustment. In other words, let there always be something that you can do something more with. Maintain your standard of living. Now, if I go back to the 50s, 1950, I'll go back even further. 1929, anybody know what happened in 1929? Stock market crash, the Great Depression. You've heard of the Great Depression. If you have grandparents, you've heard them comment about the Great Depression, or great-grandparents in your situation. And it was a time when people had done without for so long because there was no work, there was no money, and people were starving, and people were moving into sheds together, multiple families, just to maintain. And my parents left Oklahoma during the Great Depression and came out to Washington. Now, I've heard people say that when people who have come through the Depression, if they got a package in the mail and it was, brown paper and tied with string, they would untie the string, and then they would go to the closet and get their ball of string, and they would tie one end onto the end of that ball of string and continue to wrap it up because they didn't believe in wasting anything. That was a reflection of those that came out of that time when financially things had become so difficult, the Great Depression. Now, if you move into the 80s, when things changed and there was a lot of jobs, a lot of work, well-paying jobs, people adjusted their lifestyles, and it's very common that people would spend every dime that they earned. Okay? And we became known as the American consumer because we consumed everything we could get our hands on with every dollar that we had. All right? But that's one generation back. Let me talk about today's generation. Today's generation struggles to save anything, lives on every dime that they make, and when that's not enough, what do? Credit card. So now we have a generation. I picked up a client just the other day, and the lady took a call. It was her daughter. She had her very first credit card statement arrive in the mail. And she was trying to tell her, it's okay, just pay the minimum payment. It'll be okay. You'll have to pay some interest, And I thought, oh man, give me 5 minutes. But I listened to the conversation, realizing this is just a reflection of many people in society today. They will, when they turn 18, they'll get credit cards in the mail. There'll be a $300 balance on it, and people will use them, say, I got $300. Of course, they don't have $300. They have the opportunity to spend $300 they don't have and pay it back in time with interest. And that's what that mother was telling her daughter. Now, a lot of credit cards advertise various amounts of interest, all right? 21% is not a high interest credit card. The Alaska credit card, if you don't make the payment on every month, it's 30%. That's quite a chunk of change. We have 4 Alaska credit cards. We pay them every month. Yes, we want the points, but we're not interested in paying the interest. There was a time in life when we had got into the trap and became very encumbered because we used the credit cards and could not catch up making the payments. And there's a lot of people today, and through my lifetime, that I have known in the same situation. When you get buried with debt, you don't get out of it in a couple of weeks or months. Oftentimes it takes years of a concerted effort to get back out of debt if there's not a major change in your income, or you have some kind of a windfall. What I want to show you is if you get a 21% charging credit card in the mail, and you see you have a balance, you can or a limit, you can spend $300, and let's say you spend the $300, but you decide there's a lot of things that you want to do, and so you don't want to take your $300 and pay that credit card off. What's the minimum payment? Oh, $18? Okay, I'll pay $18 so I can use the rest of my money to go out to Applebee's, and the young people are going out tonight. And so you continue to spend, and here's what happens. If you maintain a $300 balance on a credit card charging 21% interest, and you just make the minimum payments, okay? And you do that for 5 years. Oh, what I didn't show you was the balance would only be down to $258. Even though you're making payments for 5 years, the minimum payment, you would still owe $258. So in the end, rather than that $300, whatever it was that you bought, it's now cost you $592 if you paid off the $258 all at once. So be careful about the credit card trap, okay? You can use them, and they are a tool with discipline. But without discipline, they are a trap, they're trouble, and there's a lot of people that have been bankrupt by credit card debt. Okay, I want to talk to you for a minute about McDonald's. Anybody looking forward? Who works here? I know you do. Are you thinking about, young people, are you thinking about getting a job? Okay. My first job was at a Burger King, or a Burger Chef, it was actually called, back in New Jersey. Probably paid me $1.58 an hour, some ridiculous wage. But it was my first job. I lasted a couple weeks. My friends came through, they were going to the county fair. I said, and I wanted to go. I quit my job and I went to the county fair. But that's what young people do sometimes, all right? And I did that. But, so McDonald's today, in the state of Washington, the minimum wage is the highest in Washington or around the country. I don't know if you knew that. They get paid $18 an hour. Now that sounds like a lot of money to me from my $1.58. If I work 40 hours a week, I'll make $581 a week. If I do that for a year, or work 40 hours a week, for a year, I'll make $12,000 in a year's time. Wow, that sounds like a little bit of money, doesn't it? $12,000? If I do that for 40 years and retire, I can expect to collect $1,200 a month from Social Security. Now here's the statement that I want to make to you. 40% of Americans, almost half of all Americans, are not prepared for retirement. They're not prepared for retirement. $1,200 a month would not pay rent. Never mind the rest of a person's living. And there's a lot of people that are scratching, trying to figure out how they're going to survive because they worked the job, they made a wage, but they lived on what they made. In other words, they consumed their wage. What I want to talk to you about tonight is learning to think differently, okay? Don't depend solely on income from a job. Have an income generating hobby or a side hustle. That's what I want to talk to you about. Don't fix it in your mind that I just have to get a job and I have to make some money. Because when you get money, then you need a car. You can't ride the bus everywhere. And then, next year you're going to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Maybe you're going to get married. And then you're going to need a house. And then you're going to have a family. And then you know, before you realize it, even though you may get a job that has a decent wage, what I found was it took every dime we had to maintain a household and raise a family. And we didn't live high on the hog. We had a very little house. We had an insignificant income, in my opinion. But again, we did always honor the Lord first in all that we did. And so God did sustain us. But we have not been a family that ever had one of these big windfalls, you know, some big giant money thing fall out of the sky or, you know. But the Lord has sustained us. But as I go into my senior years, I think about this more for those who have not given consideration for this time of life. We have worked with several families that had moms and dads who needed to go into care facilities, only to realize that a care facility was going to charge them $10,000 a month. And the average lifespan of a person going into full-time care is 18 months. That's $180,000 that's going to go to a care facility, okay? And most people don't plan for that. It's called an end-of-life plan. And so I want to help people think a little bit more, and I just wanted to share some things to maybe trigger some thoughts for you. And I've asked Sister Adriana to do the same thing. She has done several things, and she's going to share what she can with you. The idea of doubling your money. I want you to think about that for a minute. And I'm not talking about just your wage. I'm talking about if you can do something, and you can do something, with the idea that you're not going to consume what you do. You're not going to spend what you make on the side. Live by your wage. Make your standard of living by your wage, unless your wage is significant enough that you can put something more aside. How many here of you young people, how many of you have $50 in the bank? How many has 500 in the bank? Besides your NYC trip money. Okay. How many has, no, I'll stop asking there. That's great. That's wonderful. So if I use the dollar value with you of $50, you can understand $50. Okay. Maybe you've even gotten a gift from grandma or grandpa and it was $50. We get $50 and we see a bicycle, we see a pair of shoes, we see a coat, we see things that could easily, that's only halfway there. Everything I look at nowadays costs $100 or more, anywhere. My wife bought a pair of tennis shoes the other day for $100. She said she's taking them back, they don't fit her well. But let's talk about $50 and let's talk about doubling, the power of doubling. $50 is not a lot of money. My wife and I went out to dinner the other night. We each had a meal. It was $100. It was $100. I couldn't believe it. That's the cost today. So what if we took $50 and we set it aside? Whether it was a bank account or somewhere, but we set it aside, or we said, let's do something with that $50 and double it. I'm going to use a long period of time, 1 year. If you could double that $50 in 1 year, if I challenged you to double $50 in 1 year, how many would take that challenge? You think you could do it? Okay, a couple of you. Okay, if you double the $50 in 1 year, what's it make? What's it become? This is simple math. $100. Okay, so that's year one. So year two, let's take that $50 that you started with and you made it now to $100. Let's double that. What does that make? $200. Simple math. Year three, Let's double it again. $400. Year 4. What's that become? $800. Now, I know that 5 years sounds like a long period of time to you at your age. 5 years out. How old are you going to be in 5 years? Okay? That's not that far out. In 5 years, if you continue to double that money, it'll become $1,600. What if you continued that process of doubling that money? You found a way and you continued to double the money just once a year. In 10 years, that $50 would become $51,000. See, your greatest asset is the time that you have ahead of you. That if you just operate a simple process of, again, taking what you have and doubling it in some form or some fashion. I'm going to share with you some things on how you can double your money every year or every month or every week if you want to. Okay? So the plan of a year is very doable. It's very easy. And $50 can truly become $51,000 in 10 years. How old will you be in 10 years? 27. Okay. So let's use another number. Let's use a larger number, because this is a number that I felt like the Lord had dealt with me some time ago about. Just punch this into your phone and see what this is. And so I took $10,000 and I doubled it to become 20,000, then 40, then 80, 160, 320, well, so 10 years of doubling $10,000, and what does it become? $10,240,000. That's almost inconceivable, isn't it? I mean, is that all? Is that all I would have to do is just double that once a year? And in 10 years, it becomes $10,240,000. What do you think this figure is? This is $3 million. What do you think that figure represents? If I took this 10,000 and doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled for 10 years, but all I did was take those monies and leave them in a mutual fund that was tracking the S&P 500, which gains about 12 to 15% per year, I would have an extra $3 million on top of that $10 million, just by keeping that money in a mutual fund or a stock or something that is gaining at least what the S&P 500 does. Okay? Now, whoops. That's a lot of money, isn't it? I can't even imagine why anybody would need that kind of money. But that's not my point. My point is, can you see if you will just keep from consuming everything that you have? Let me ask you this. Could you come up with $10,000? Extra. I don't mean rob from Peter to pay Paul. Can you come up with $10,000? No hands. Let me tell you a quick story. Anybody have a pet? We have a pet named Molly, a golden retriever. Paid $1,500 for her. Had to save those $1,500 to buy one dog. Had to raise that dog for a couple of years, but we bred that dog. And in 63 days, she had 10 puppies. And in 1 week, we sold those 10 puppies and made $18,000. So, is it hard to come up with $10,000? It is not hard to come up with $10,000. And a person who has $10,000, and if finds a way to double it every year, once a year. The potential is to do this in time. So why is it that we have so many people, some of them in our families, who are struggling to live month by month? It's because of these principles we're just not applying these principles in our life. I don't have $10 million. I don't have $1 million. Okay? But I have, maybe I'm starting late, but I'm changing some of the things that I'm doing at this stage of my life, because I also know the scripture says that a good man will leave an inheritance to his children's children. That means my grandchildren. I want to do things. I want to put things aside. I want to do what I couldn't do when I was trying to raise my family. But what I'm wanting to share with you, that at your age, the fact that you have so many years ahead of you, there are some simple things that if you'll put them in motion, it will greatly impact your future. My first home, the first home we bought, we paid $37,000 for. I would have never thought you'd go down the street and all the homes would be $1 million homes. I mean, this ain't Hollywood. But yet the cost of homes, do you know what the median price home is here in the Seattle-Tacoma area? It's over $600,000. That's headed to $1 million, the median price home. And so what you're going to face in the future, well, we don't know. But you can do some things now to plan ahead. I encourage you to just give some thought to these things. Now, I've done a lot of things, and I just want to talk about a couple of things. Many of you know about the Paletta factory that we had. We manufactured paletas. We were the biggest producer in the state of Washington of fruit bars at one time. And we started with nothing. We didn't have any money to start with. And what we did was we reinvested every dime that we had as it grew. We ended up having a plant and trucks and delivered product all over Washington. And it was a great time. It was fun. We loved it. It was a family business. I had a partner in it, and it was great. And then eventually, we ended up starting a iPhone repair business with your dad. And it turned out to be something, ended up training guys from around the country. They would fly in. So there were several people around the country that were repairing iPhones. We had repaired over 1 million iPhones. And so that all started just from dropping my phone and it cracking and somebody telling me, hey, you can fix that. And I did. And so again, as you pay attention through life, you recognize problems and solutions. And when you bring those together, it can mean a profit to you. All right? I want to talk about some of these things over here. Thank you, Sister Clausen, for a pair of skis. I went to a yard sale one time in the neighborhood, and there was a ski there. It was a slalom ski for water skiing, okay? I didn't know anything about that. I didn't water ski, but it was wooden, and it was beautiful. It was just a beautiful ski. And the man was only asking $15 for it, and I said, would you take 10? Okay, so I bought that ski, and I took it back to the house, and I thought, man, that is beautiful. I'm going to list that on eBay. And I listed it on eBay, and the next morning, it was at $190. And I thought, holy cow. I paid $10 for that, and I'm thinking, why would somebody want to buy that? It's only one ski. It's not even two skis. And so I reached out, and the man said, that was the exact ski that I skied on in college. So that told me, by listening to what he was telling me, this was a nostalgia buy. This was all emotion. This wasn't the value of the ski buy. It was all emotion, and it was nostalgia. Well, for whatever reason, I think there was another set of skis that I had picked up in another yard sale there and listed them on eBay. Again, people are getting rid of their skis. They're no longer skiing, and they're in the corner, and mom says, we're having a yard sale this weekend. Those skis are going in the yard sale. And so they sell them cheap. That is a depressed value. When they were excited about skiing, they went out and bought skis and maybe paid $400 or $500 for their equipment. But now they're not skiing anymore, and it's in a yard sale. There's a lot of things like that in life that to one person, they're worth a lot of money. And to another person, they're not worth anything anymore. And when you discover those things, it can become an opportunity. And so this is what I did with it. We were sending kids to youth camp, and we thought this would be a great way to raise funds for youth camp. And so I started going around because I noticed that all the Value Villages and the Goodwills, they all had a bucket in the corner or a barrel in the corner with 5 or 6 pairs of skis in them. And I would go in and I would look at those skis and I'd say, yeah, the bindings look okay. And yeah, they're okay. That looks great. And I'd buy their skis. Again, $10, $15, maybe $20. And I would take them home. I would list them on eBay, and I would sell them for $70 to $80. Now, was I doubling my money? Go ahead, nod your head. Now, this wasn't taking a year. I was doing this in a week's time. No matter how many skis I would buy, and what was funny was, people were buying snow skis from Florida. And so I would reach out and say, don't mind my asking, but you're in Florida. Why are you buying snow skis? Well, my buddy and I are going on a ski trip in Denver on the weekend. We don't want to buy new equipment, and we didn't want to trust rentals, so we thought we'd just buy them this way. So now he's telling me why people in the South, I shipped a lot of them to the South, where they have no snow, and they were buying snow skis. And I was, again, let's say I'm on the high side, I was paying $20, but I was selling them for $80. So I wasn't just doubling my money, I was quadrupling my money. Now that shortens down the time span. Now I can do this, but it's not going to take me 10 years to do this, because I'm not doubling it in a year, I'm quadrupling it in 7 days to 14 days. There are many opportunities like that. And so I had 100 pair of skis in my shed out back, and eventually Troy Thompson wanted some to make some benches out of them, and he did. So I just donated them all to him. But we shipped skis for quite a while all over the country. And so, again, you stumble onto these things and you learn. And then when you have learned, say, a principle like that I just shared with you, you got the person is going to pay a lot of money, and you got a person who's going to give them away, practically, okay? There's a lot of that in life, and when you can bring those situations together, then you can do it for your gain, above and beyond working and having a wage. It's good to have a wage. You got to pay rent, you got to make a car payment, you got to pay bills, you got to buy clothes, you got to buy food, you got to do those things. But if you can determine that if I'm going to do something on the side and I'm not going to touch that money, I'm going to build something with it, I'm going to let it grow and get to the place that my money is working for me rather than me is working for my money. You follow me with that? Does that make sense? Even if it doesn't make sense, it's true. Okay, I want to share, I don't have a ladder with me. I was going to bring one of my ladders. I have one in my yard right now. By the way, of all the businesses that I've done, and I've done a few, it was Molly that was the most profitable and the least amount of work. Of all the businesses I've done, it was the most profitable and the least amount of work. I'm just saying. And Molly is not a business venture. She is a part of the family. So it doesn't take work. We want to feed her because she's like one of the kids. No, okay. Anybody know what this is? Take a guess. Go ahead. Call it out.
Is it a baby maple?
What? Can't hear you.
Is it a baby maple tree?
Nope. This is a fig tree.
Oh.
A Desert King fig tree. This branch came off of the tree. Whoops, I'm getting out of here. Came off of the tree that's planted out in the driveway out there. That's what these are. Okay? There are people, I learned this in time. I wanted a fig tree because my friend wanted a fig tree. I just said, I'll get some for you. He couldn't get them in Yakima. I said, I'll find some over here. I bought a fig tree. I planted it out there. It cost me $15. Then I realized there's people all over the internet selling scion wood for 20 bucks. 3 sticks of scion wood for 20 bucks on eBay. And so those 2 trees I planted, they grow up. This year, I cut, 50, 60, maybe 70 pieces of scion. I've thrown a bunch away already. Of scion wood, you stick it in the freezer or the refrigerator for 3 months, and it'll be dormant and, be sleeping. This is still asleep. I take this out, and you'll see there's a green branch right there on that stick. You see that? That will turn into this if I just stick them in dirt. So, as I looked, there was another guy that he said, I'm not going to just sell the scion wood. I'm going to go ahead and stick that in pots, make a tree out of them. Where these guys were selling these for 20 bucks, he sells this for 50 bucks and ships them in the mail. And if you go to his website and you see 50 bucks, out of supply, out of supply, out of supply. He's selling everything that he can produce. So again, here's a way. How much did this cost me? Nope, that tree cost me 15 bucks. What did this cost me? Nothing. Okay, what's this worth? On eBay? 20. What's this worth on eBay? 50. Okay, so now I've taken something that cost me nothing and put a little effort out. I haven't even looked at these. These have been in the refrigerator for months. Didn't take much effort just to go out and cut them and stick them in the refrigerator. Now, I haven't even watered this thing because it rains here so much. Anybody know what this is? You do, because I told you. This is a willow tree. It's a squiggly willow tree. I think they look very pretty. And I was on a golf course with Callum, and I saw this tree, and I thought, I like that tree. I want that tree. I tore a branch off, stuck it in my golf bag, and took it home. What'd that cost me? Cost me the green fee. I had to go out and play the golf, round of golf. No. So that branch, I took it home and I cut it into 3 to 4 inch twigs. I stuck them in a glass of water, stuck them in a window, and they rooted in about a week and a half. Once they rooted, I stuck them into dirt pots like this size. I've had 50 of these trees from that one branch. I grew one on the farm. I stuck it in the pasture. It was over 20 feet tall from that one branch, that twig that I cut. What did that 20-foot tree cost me? Nothing. Here's my point. Willow trees are fast-growing trees, and people want to buy them because they're growing fast. They want shade in their yard now. Now, they're not going to get it now, but it'll take a couple of years. But I've seen them for sale for 50 bucks, a willow tree. So right now, I got 10 willow trees in my yard in pots. So what's that worth? 500 bucks. What did that cost me? Nothing. So now that's not my paycheck. That's not my income that I make my car payment with, my house payment, all those things. That's money on the side because I did a project that I can take and turn into more. You want to hear a quick story? This is crazy. I drove sedan service for 10 months. There was another preacher told me about it. He was doing it. I did it for 10 months. I couldn't tell you why I was doing it, except that that's what led me to Pedro Guzman in Florida. Okay, who has now started churches in Italy and in Ireland. But I was doing that for 10 months. When I did that, there was no information on how to do it. So as I would sit in the living room talking with my kids and my wife, I was typing. What was I typing? I was typing out the how to start a sedan service. This is long before Uber or Lyft. And so I typed this out and I burned it onto a CD and I started selling them for $5 a piece. I was shipping them every day. Well, one guy reached out and he says, I want to get one of these from my dad, but he's not going to look on a computer to read that. Why don't you print it in a book? Oh man, I don't want to do that. But finally, I thought, okay, if there's enough people that want it in a book form, I'll print the book. So I get the book printed. Now I'm shipping them out, no longer CDs, now it's books. In the mail, but I'm charging $20 a book. I don't remember how long I did that, but here's what I know. I made more money selling the books on the information than I did driving the car and actually doing the work. Okay? So again, I can go on to that. Now I still sell it on Amazon as a digital. I don't get anything printed. Okay. Let's go to this one. There's 5 trees. These are maple trees. Okay. Those trees out along the road that I planted, those are maple trees. I paid $200 a piece for those trees. Okay. They were, I don't know, that tall. I'm at the farm and I'm looking out the window and I see our maple tree and seeds falling in the spring. Not the fall, in the spring. And they're all over the yard and I'm thinking, oh man, I got to clean that mess up. Well, when I go out there and look, I'm thinking, well, that's a good seed. Wonder if that would grow. So I picked up a bunch, put them in a box, dried them on top of the refrigerator. A lot of hard work, you know. And then I wrapped them in a wet paper towel and they all sprouted. So I stuck them in these little seed planter things, you know, you see. I had hundreds of maple trees growing. Now, we had to leave the farm and they ended up staying and, you know, couldn't be cared for. So they're gone. But I did bring some with me and I've got, I don't know, 10 of these in my yard in pots that will grow up now. I'll probably grow them up 5 or 6 feet, sell them for $50 a piece. What did they cost me? Nothing. A little bit of effort, a little bit of labor. There are so many things around us. Now, I didn't have to go to an encyclopedia, read up on this. I didn't, you know, do a lot of research. I just, with my eyes, saw things and opportunities and realized, wow, if people will pay $200 for these maple trees, I can put seeds in the dirt and they will grow. I don't even babysit them. It rains on this side of the mountains. I don't have to water them. I just finally moved them away from the side of the house. Now, these aren't leafed out yet, but they will. It's still early. But again, so these are the things that I wanted to share with you that, that might trigger something for you. That if you will consider some kind of a project, some kind of a hobby. Listen, a lot of people have hobbies that cost them a lot of money. When I started playing golf, I don't make any money playing golf. I spend a lot of money playing golf. Okay? But a lot of the hobbies that I've had in my life, because I had become very entrepreneurial, my hobbies made me money. As you see, as I'm sharing with you. And these are the things that, some of the things that a person can do above and beyond a wage that can far outgrow that. Sister Adriana's here with us tonight, and I want her to come and take some time now and share. She has been very successful in building a business around some hobbies.
So I'm going to keep it as short and sweet as I can because there's a lot of things that I could share with you. And I want to kind of talk about my business and how I started it because I want your wheels to start spinning when I write some stuff. Can I erase that or
Yeah,
no?
you can do what you want.
Okay. So a long time ago, when I was 5 years old, I found a bunny outside hopping around, and I caught it. And a couple days later, it had babies, and we sold those babies to the feed store for like $5. I was 5 years old, so cool. I had like $15 or whatever, right? And so I kind of just kept having bunnies because I thought they were super adorable. And long story short, we go through high school. I always kind of had bunnies on and off. And then when I was in my 20s, I started breeding them again. And I was really against social media, but I was just like, well, I have nothing better to do with my life. So I made an Instagram page. Well, that Instagram page went viral super, super fast. I mean, I had licensing agencies and news agencies licensing my stuff within like 6 months after posting videos of just like my dogs and my bunnies cuddling. And so that's when everything kind of was like, oh, maybe I could do this to make some money and not have to work for somebody, because I'm an entrepreneur, much like Bishop, and I like to think of ways that I can make my own money. I'm a leader. I like to work for myself, and I like to lead teams of people. And anyways, I kept going with it, and it kept growing, and then there's always a need. And thank God for my customers, because they're the ones that really helped my business expand. So I started selling bunnies to people. I would sell them for $20, $30, and they would sell so fast. And I'm just like, I looked at the market. You always have to look at things. Look at the market, see what things are selling for. And I was lowballing myself. I was like, I could get like 40, 50, $60 for these guys. Well, one day, I had a really, really cute bunny, super cool markings. I'd never seen anything like it. And somebody came to look at the bunnies, and I was planning on keeping that rabbit because I wanted to breed it to make more colors like that. And so in my head, I'm just like, I'm gonna think of a ridiculous number that nobody would pay, and because I don't want anyone to buy it. And so she comes, and of course she wants the coolest looking one. And I said, oh, that one's $250. And she goes, oh, I'll take it. And I was like, what? Like, what? Now, I'm not encouraging you to just like blow things out of proportion and charge a ridiculous amount of money for something that's not worth that. That's not what I'm saying with this. I just didn't know that there was a market for that. So anyways, I kept selling bunnies, and then somebody one day said, I'm going on vacation, can you watch my bunny? And I thought, well, why not? I'll charge you $10 a day. And then boom, that took off. And I had pens inside my house. People would come drop them off at whatever time they wanted. And that kept growing to the point where I was like, Mom, we have to sell the furniture. We don't even sit in our living room. So we literally sold everything in our living room except for the tiny little couch. And we had just pens lined up. And I was like, okay, this is a little bit ridiculous. Like, this is my house. And we had a shop in the backyard that a guy rented out. I think he paid like $700 a month. And eventually I was like, Mom, I can pay you that. Let me try to see if I can keep growing my business. So we kicked that guy out very kindly. And I moved in there, remodeled it, and I posted on social media. And back then I might have had like, I don't know, 20, 30,000 followers. Well, social media is worldwide. What are the odds that anybody from Kent, Washington followed Blue Clover Rabbitry? And so I posted on Instagram like, hey, come to our open house. We just remodeled. I thought maybe like 5, 6, 7 people were gonna show up, and over 400 people came to my house. I mean, the entire, thank God for the neighborhood that I lived in, but the roads were full, my entire neighborhood. And my neighbors are like, what is going on? Why are there so many cars here? I had to call my neighbors, my friends for backup. And I was like, okay, we'll have people snuggling bunnies over here. I'll wander around and talk to people. But that's when I realized, okay, I can do something here. Like, this isn't just social media. And so that's when I started like bunny therapy too. But before I remodeled that, I had the bunny therapy in my house. And I was like, we'll see how that goes. I'll charge people like $4. Come snuggle baby bunnies. That's a thing. Well, I'm up to $15 now, which is still really cheap. But at the rate that you're doing it, like how many sessions and people you're flowing through, like it's very profitable. And you can do it with anything. You can do cows, pigs, goats, chickens, any animal. People love animals. It's a billion-dollar industry in the United States. You just have to really think outside the box. Like, I started with a couple rabbits that I was breeding, and it turned into basically this empire. I mean, it's not just bunny therapy. One day somebody said, oh, I'm not comfortable with the rabbit going in the cargo. Can you fly it to me? And so I looked up the numbers. What would it cost me? What would be worth my time?
Yeah.
I pitched them a number and they said yes. And I said, oh, okay, I'll do that. And so then I started flying 130,000 miles every year delivering bunnies. So it just kept growing. But you have to start somewhere, right? And you never know where that's going to take you. So now I'm to the point where it's like I need employees and it's expanding and I can franchise. Like, it's insane. But it all started with this idea and people saying, hey, there's a need here. And me saying, oh, let me figure out how to do that. And it doesn't have to be animals. I mean, photography, whatever other things you can be interested in. You can teach classes if you get good at stuff. If you enjoy making soaps or creams and stuff like that, you don't just have to sell a product, you can sell yourself. Like, you can sell your information. People want to know how to do this stuff. So I am going to do something, I'm going to scale it way down, and I'm going to write kind of a business plan for chickens. And I know Ava has sent you, I just watched your YouTube video, by the way, very inspiring. But she was buying chicks and then raising them to 4 months, right? And then selling them for a profit, right? And you were getting like,
Depending on the time in COVID, I could sell them for $50 a piece, buy them for $5. And I'd
Mhm.
probably do something similar now, but
Mhm.
on average, I'd buy them for $3 to $4 and sell them for 25.
for 25 at 4 months, right? Yeah. And it costs like $10 to feed it, right? So that's a really great business plan if you live in the city and you can't have a rooster.
Right.
But if you can have a rooster, whee. So it's also, you have to read the market, right? So when I'm scrolling on Facebook and stuff, I'm not just looking at garbage. I'm getting information.
Yeah.
What are people in the Pacific Northwest poultry group looking for in their Americanas, Copper Marans? They want colorful eggs, basically. So my business plan is way different because I have a farm. I have 5 acres. I'm gonna start with 52 hens and make a bunch of money really quick. But you can start really slow. And I was just thinking, like, looking at the space up here, if you had a yard, maybe even just half the size of the podium up here, and got 1 chicken coop, and you had 10 hens and 1 rooster, okay? So you're gonna have 10 hens. My handwriting is just as good as Bishop. Okay, 1 rooster. If I can spell it. It's gonna cost you nothing to feed them per month. You'll probably go through, sorry, I had it all written out, maybe $10 a month to feed them. Okay, so you're gonna do $10 a month. You gotta raise them out for about 6, 7, 8 months until they start laying eggs. And we're gonna do a very low number. So whenever you're projecting something for a business, go very, very low, because birds can die, they can stop laying for a period of time. So we're gonna go with 5 eggs a day out of 10, so 50%, right? So you do 5 eggs a day. Does anyone have a calculator out? We're gonna do a little bit of math. So if you're getting 5 eggs a day, what's 5 times 7?
35.
35. So you're gonna get 35 eggs a week, right? And when you're incubating eggs, so what you're wanna doing, what I'm trying to explain right now is selling chicks. So there's a lot more money in chicks than there are in eggs. So I sell eggs too. I sell them for $7 a dozen, but that same 7 dozen, I could literally sell each chick for $18 per egg once it hatches, right?
Right.
So 35 eggs a week. So times that by 4. What is 35 times 4?
140.
Okay, 140 eggs a month, right?
Okay.
Okay, so 140 eggs a month, and this is the low end. So now let's do, because not every single egg is gonna hatch, right? There's gonna be duds, some of them just don't form right. So let's do 120 eggs times $15, because we're gonna charge $15 a chick. So we're doing 120.
$1,800.
Okay. Okay, so $1,800 a month for selling 120 chicks, right? Now, the reason why there's a higher profit margin in this is I can't even keep up with chick sales right now. You're not even feeding them. You put the eggs in an incubator, you wait 21 days, and right when they hatch, you post on the forums, like, I have chicks, I have these chicks, you post the eggs, you post the parents, and people are coming to buy them. So they're eating like a couple pellets for half of a day before everyone comes and swoops them up. So you're really not even feeding these birds, you're feeding the 10 hens and a rooster, but you just made $1,800 a month off of 10 hens and a rooster, which really isn't a lot of space.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible. So times 1,800 by 12. What's 1,800 times 12?
21,600.
Okay, that's $21,600 extra a year, basically really not doing any work. You're feeding the birds in the morning, right? You're dealing with customers coming and going. How much are you making working at McDonald's? Working under somebody, smelling like grease when you get home, and you're working 40 hours a week? This isn't even 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
This is putting eggs in an incubator. It's automatic. And incubators, by the way, they're like 120, 140 bucks.
Mhm.
You're gonna make that back your very first hatch. So no, this isn't really like a $50 startup plan, but you guys are so young. You can do what Ava's doing.
Yeah.
Buy chicks, raise them out, sell them, keep that money, save your money. Treat credit cards like debit cards, by the way. Credit cards, don't just go spend your money. I always treat it like a debit card. If I don't have the money, I don't spend the money.
Yeah.
But you want to use credit cards because you earn points and you get money back. So it's good to use credit cards.
Yeah.
Just don't spend what you don't have.
Mhm.
Anyways, but this is just such an easy way to make $21,000 extra a year.
Yeah.
Versus someone working a full-time job, stressing out, having to deal with all kinds of different problems. This is so easy, and then you can take this money and you can put it back into it, and I'm not even saying double, you could quadruple. I mean, I went from making, I don't know, a couple $100 a month selling bunnies. I've made over $1 million doing what I do with my business because I kept growing. And get your wheels turning, like, okay, yeah, I have these hens and roosters and I'm just selling chicks. Well, there's going to be a need for something else. Like, you could start teaching classes to people. Opportunities just pour in. I had an opportunity to write a book. I'm not a writer and I don't read. I told the author that reached out to me, I only read the Bible. That is the only book I read. And they didn't even care. You have the favor of God. You are Holy
Yes.
Ghost filled, baptized in Jesus' name. He will give you favor. And another thing I want to say about social media, I am so guilty of this. You look around, it's aesthetically pleasing, and you're like, oh, I want to do what they do. That's so cool. God made you the way you are, and to have the interest that you are, you can turn that into money. So if you guys ever have questions, if you're like, oh, I'm interested in this, but how can I make money? Like, please talk to me, because I'm very good at thinking of ideas. And yeah, I think this is just a really simple, easy explanation. 11 birds to
That is fantastic.
make profit. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. And that's all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We can shut these off now.